Hey everybody, welcome back to another vendor update here on All Things MSP. This vendor update is brought to you by Easy DMARC. They're a great sponsor of this channel, and one of the things I love about these vendor updates is it's not always the vendor or an employee of the vendor coming on and giving us some type of information, right, about the product or something that they've rolled out recently, but it's also the testimonials. And what we have today is a subject matter expert from the industry to talk about, thought leadership around DMARC and around email. And of course, I can think of nobody better than my friend Matt Lee. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
I'm happier about using subject matter expert now because I was at a conference at GERCON where a friend of mine gave a talk, George Kamide, and he said, expert just means that you've tried a lot and tested a lot. And I'm fine with that. That's accurate. But I think of myself as an expert student. Anyways, I digress. Great to see you, brother.
Well, we all have to be in this industry, right? Because it's all changing every single day. And if you don't put your learning hat on at least once a day and be trying stuff, you're going to be behind.
100%. 100%. And a lot of it is things that we're just maturing on. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So
yeah. And speaking of email, I think email is really interesting in this point in time, especially because we're in a point in time where email is the communication method of choice for businesses. We've gone from it being telephone and regular, snail mail to email being the predominant source of business communications.
At least as a first touch. Yeah, for sure.
Well, what I mean really is across company lines, right? When you're reaching out externally
100%.
To another company, another user, another purchaser of your product, whatever, a prospect, you're frequently doing that by email.
That's right.
And we also know that email is a huge problem when it comes to security. And I know we want to kind of touch on the security today as well, but we also want to talk about how it actually affects the business itself in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to hand it off to you for just a second because Matt should introduce yourself because I didn't give you an opportunity to do that, although hopefully most people know who you are, and then we'll get into it.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I'm a recovering MSP. I work for Pax8. Not that I'm here representing them today. This is more my own subject matter knowledge, hence the Deadwood, South Dakota t-shirt. No, I tease. But I was with an MSP through almost every seat from 1 million to 3 and 5 and 7 and 28 and 40 million in revenue, and exited successfully about 3 years ago. And without beleaguering the point, was at the helm of a burgeoning security team and an organization that was merging together to be that 28 or 20 something million revenue organization at that time. And we bought a company I call Voldemort, and Voldemort cost us about 3 million in economic impact for a ransomware event by Sodinokibi, as it turned out the third time they had been ransomed. And so that started my life mission of saying we all have to be better. And as I went down the path of building a very secure and separation of duty and tied to CIS controls organization with some amazing humans, we were able to kind of build something awesome. But as we talked to vendors, we started getting pushback of things they didn't do or wouldn't do or hadn't done, or you're the only one asking for SSO, Matt, or yes, but it'll be 10,000 more a month, or right, things of that nature. And it really gave me a passion to drive and do what I do. So that's my background. That's me. Eric, and I'll also kick off kind of this point of email and how important it's become in the business, and agree with you very much of saying, yeah, like everything's going to start there. A lot of business email compromises that we talk about are how they lose money is because that transaction was handled conveniently in that email, right? And a lot of those kind of things play out. So you hit the nail on the head on it becoming so very vital to business, even if it is the first touch. And by that I mean it then starts a Teams meeting group or something and then becomes a, right? And so, but to your point, that very initial piece and even some transactional things that play out forever are done in that. And very specifically, it's used a lot to start down that nurturing campaign of marketing that goes out and those emails, right? And we'll get back to that in a bit, but it's a big part of how we go from marketing qualified leads to sales qualified leads to executed and closed and move to business and revenue. So we have a lot of dependence on those delivery mechanisms. Now, definitely social media, other mechanisms of getting eyeballs are all, hopefully, and to your own credit, Eric, very valuable. And so there's other methods. But once it goes from there, it's to an email. So I think we've set the stage properly for how vital email is, and everyone that's listening probably already understands that part pretty well.
They do, but I think it bears bringing up because it's been a slow evolution, right? And it's kind of just crept up. It's like a lot of things where we gravitate towards the most convenient thing. Yeah. And email has become that thing. Yeah. The interesting thing to me, though, is with email, you also have that convenience versus security type of problem that you see a lot of times like with SSO, right? Kinda. Or two-factor authentication.
Kinda, Eric. Here's what I'll go with that. So many of the things we're talking about are hygienic. It's like being an adult that has finally come from childhood, met that girl of your dreams or guy of your dreams, and look around and finally pick up the toilet brush and hit the toilet. Or instead of just stuffing stuff under the bed like you have every day as a kid to clean up, you move to actually folding it and sorting through it and maybe tossing out that cheeseburger wrapper. So you start living in this world where a lot of the stuff we're talking about is just freaking hygienic. Like, we've had SPF around forever. We've had DChem around forever. We've had capabilities of managing these things. The protocols, the capabilities of the RFCs have been around for a long time. We just haven't used them. We haven't done this. We haven't cared. We haven't brushed our teeth. We haven't scrubbed the sink. We haven't cleaned up. Like, not to get me triggered, but the point is there's so many of the things that people talk about that are hard are like, hey, stupid, have a list of your computers. Have an asset inventory. And maybe when you get rid of one, like, mark it off. You'll do it with the rolls of toilet paper in your closet. You'll do it with the number of sponges you have acquired for your business. You'll do it with the number of widgets, but you won't do it with your computers. So let's just be honest with ourselves that so many of these things are basics. Now, once you get past that and you start thinking about the why and what we're doing and how you get guidance for that, for me it's CIS, and it's CIS 9.5, and it says very specifically, I'll read it, to lower the chance of spoofed or modified emails from valid business domains, implement DMARC policy and verification, starting with implementing SPF and DChem standards. That's what it says. And so the point is how do you do that? Well, everybody says, well, I go set it in Microsoft. Yes, that is one way of setting your outbound DChem for one of your approved mail services. But if you use anything else, maybe MailGrid or SendGrid or any of those other services or things like Salesforce or other things that might mail on your behalf, marketing platforms, all of those things. If you use them, you need to both be able to put keys in so that you can track and ensure that they're following the right things and they're being signed. Why? Because it's no longer good enough just in SPF to say where it should come from, this IP or this service potentially, but now that the person sending it and the account sending it have the signing keys necessary to do the things necessary to make sure this mail is actually really this mail as it was intended, has not been usurped, has not been implanted from another account on that. It is only this mail. If you can set those things, then you can solve one challenge that I had to face, Eric. And it was that we had a marketing director saying, nobody's clicking our links. It must be your internal mail policies. It must be the way you set up our mail. It must be the way you've done your security. I was able to take the reporting, and this is the piece a lot of people miss, and show in the reports the delivery and lack of rejections of mail being sent from those platforms to the big receivers that are out there like Microsoft and Google. And what that showed was, hey, this mail's getting delivered. Your marketing message sucks. Find a better marketing message and we won't have this problem. And so the point is, there's so many pieces of this, but they're mostly hygienic. And what you really need to be able to solve to do this effectively is when they parse back these XML reports from the Googles and the Microsoft and mail receiving platforms out there saying who's sending on your behalf and what is the status of those, then you'll be able to look at that in a graphical way that's searchable, parsable, repeatable. You can look for challenges. You can find when somebody starts sending a campaign that's you. And it's not. Well, is that really a threat actor mailing trying to trick your clients into paying? Or is that actually Sally in marketing with a credit card or Bill in marketing with a credit card? Like, what is it really that's playing out? Did they just start up a new platform, not go through your change control process? And so that's another mechanism of delivering an effective and robust security program through the things coming into you by having mechanisms of turning that into an event or an incident. And says, hey, in marketing, if you do this again and you start sending mail on our behalf, you will actually have and you can say, did we have a failure and how they got that domain pointed there? Was there something? There's other things you can learn from. So anyways, I got off on a tangent. But a lot of these things is the why isn't always apparent of this. Well, it's not going to stop somebody from having a different domain and emailing me. Nope. But it will definitely stop failures in business process, failures in change control, and improve the deliverability of the message that you want to make, to your point, Eric, in the very beginning. All important first touch through seventh touch to build up that MQL, to get the interest, to drive demand so that the BDMs get right. All the things that need to happen in a sales funnel and sales cycle are starting with deliverability and message accuracy and message value proposition ultimately, I think, as well. So I'll shut up now so you can get some words in. I apologize.
No, that's okay. That was great information. It's really, like you said, it's about hygiene, right?
Yeah.
Because it's, and hygiene here is knowing what you can manage and then managing it.
Yep.
So it's like having that asset list that you talked about.
Yeah. In essence, it's asset list for email sending systems, right? Like at the end of the day, some encompassing system, whether you do it yourself in an Excel spreadsheet and do it with your own parsing rules of XML files or build up some database, or whether you use a third party like Easy DMARC, whichever way you go with it, right? It's about solving those functions, knowing what SPF response is. The thing that you also get out of a lot of these platforms is the ability to manage that. They just usually become that SPF answerer for that, right? So that they can become that, whether they flatten it or whether they do other unique mechanisms to do that. And then they tell you about when things aren't signed, and then you can go manage those keys in those third-party platforms. They typically give you guidance on, hey, by the way, did you know nuancedly that this platform needs it right here, not over here, right? And stuff to that nature. So usually those type of platforms assist in both the setup, but as something new pops up, it asks you to matriculate that and say, hey, are you going to approve this or not approve this? No, I don't know what this is yet. Let me call the accounting team and see whose credit card is paying for this product. Oh, it's Bill. I knew it was Bill. It's always Bill. Hey, Bill, change control, brother. Like we need to have a, right? So, and I'm obviously making hyperbole light of the fact that you'd have to get domains pointed to those third-party services. There's always other operational failures that play out, maybe a ticket into your IT team that went through that shouldn't have. But right. The point is, yeah, go.
But how many times have we treated DNS, domain settings, name server settings, and the same, the email settings that we're talking about as set and forget?
Yeah, and it's like a Ronco steamer if you're old enough to know that term. Anyways.
It's what I really like about the platforms that are out there like Easy DMARC is the fact that they let you manage this by exception rather than having to manually go out and check it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's something that popped up that is anomalous. And I like to think of it as managed by anomaly, right? And so, and I like to obviously be generic. I love Easy DMARC as well. I use it for my personal domains, but I will say that, generically, they make it easy to find those anomalies as they pop up and make that yet another signal to see what's happening in your world. Is there something that I have missed in mostly my change control process around this mail delivery that is so very vital to business? And if you're trying to make this talk and explaining why you're implementing something like this for a partner or for a client, it would be very much that we care about your mail delivery, not all about the security aspect. Those are there. CIS 9.5 says it's part of malware defense, and it is a DMARC management tool that would solve that for an IG2 to protect network and to protect your internal assets in that way, right? But in reality, like ultimately, it's so much more about the business end, and that's what I like to talk about in this is I can now show you what's being delivered, where it's being delivered, what are the things that we're seeing in these reports. Like that's the thing. Go look at that level of reporting and you can start seeing, yeah, like it looks healthy. We're looking good, right? We don't have a lot of rejected mail. I actually found that my server that was doing my mail my server doing my web hosting, I blame Dom Kirby for this, no tease. He's using a domain of his to send mail as me to that service, right? Or to me from that service. I don't get it because it's being rejected, but I get the notice of it, and I was able to go say, hey, I need to add this to my SPF record and allow it to send me those messages when Dom's doing an update to that domain. So it's things to that nature too that you just don't think about that pop up. And it's great from that, to your point, managed by anomaly or managed by exception in your terms. I agree with that.
Well, and it changes the conversation, right? The security conversation, while critically important.
Oh, I love it. I'll sleep on that one I literally just sleep on a CIS printout every day.
But it's an IT, it's something that the MSP should be doing, and it's very technical and almost commoditized, because security is security. You got to have security in place. But where you're going to catch the attention of the business owner as an MSP trying to sell this into a client is that you're going to be making sure that your marketing messages are being delivered. Yep. That when your salesperson emails out of your CRM, it's going to get to the prospect.
Exactly.
And those kinds of things, now we're outside of the realm of commoditized IT, and we're entering the realm of business outcomes for the client. And that, I think, is transformational for an MSP.
It's where we're all heading. And I think it's standards that allow that, Eric, right? My life mission is just finding standards that make you not the smartest guy or gal in the room. CIS 9.5 says, hey, do this now. Go figure out what are those components, learn what those are, at least past the Dunning-Kruger principle of Mount Stupid, right? And then start implementing or finding ways to make that easier and more scalable for you. And I think that's the other piece I would add of why I would use a platform is just the sheer scalability. One place to get the same data for every client, the ability to look at how it's at, the way I do reporting, the way I do my QBRs, the way I pull, it's just that repeatability from that perspective. So, and you could build it yourself too. I'm not 100% shilling here. The point is there's a need to collect this information, concatenate this information, make sure that it has high deliverability and that things are accurate, and that you don't just flatten an IP address and then it changes and then you get some mail that gets rejected for a while and you don't know about it because you're not reporting upon it, it's that kind of stuff. So you'll have to do all of those elements yourself, and it just finds yourself easier for scale to use a platform of some form. Yep.
And it does, it gives you a word that you taught me early on. In fact, I think we talked about this in our very first interview that I ever did with you on the show floor at IT Nation. Yeah. And we talked about defensibility, because it gives you those reports. It shows you the things that you need to pay attention to so that you can pay attention to them and fix them.
Exactly. It's how you meet reasonableness is defensible things that you can prove. Here's the pieces I had. How would you have made different decisions? What more could I have done with the pieces in front of me? Right. Into those natures. So yeah, great call out.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining me today for this update from Easy DMARC. Really do appreciate it. And if you guys have questions, you can always reach out to me. Reach out to Matt. We're on LinkedIn all the time. And, if you have questions about Easy DMARC, just hit up atmsp.link/EasyDMARC.